All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mosh and Chaz show. We're going to dive right in because, Chaz, last week we ended the show on a cliffhanger. You had some big news, a huge project that you've been working on, and now we finally get to reveal to the folks, our fine listeners, what that is.
Yeah, so I have a little project I've been working on for probably 4 or 5 years. I dabbled on it a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then took some time off, and then dabbled on it a little bit more, and then kind of stepped away from it. But I have been working on a book based on my career from the day I walked into the Monster Factory in June of '93 all the way up until I left in January of '02, left WWE in 2002. So I'm about, it's funny. So that's about a 9 year span. So
Yeah.
I'm about 3 years into that. Basically it's stories of what I was going through while I was going through everything. So for instance, the first time I walked into a WWE locker room, the first time I was in a WWE ring, to having my first, what I would, sorry, consider my first real match, what I was thinking, what I was going through, how I felt about it, details like that, details of Glenn and I packing up the car and moving to Memphis with no idea where we were living, what we were doing, how we were going to survive, or what we were going to do, all the way up into signing a first contract and going to Smoky Mountain, and just the ins and outs of what was going on. So this is actually the first time on any kind of social media platform or podcast or whatever that I've actually mentioned working on a book.
Yep.
So the reason I'm sharing that with you now is I had went back up to New Jersey a few weeks ago for a high school band reunion. And there was a classmate of mine who graduated a few years after me. She is actually a ghostwriter, an author, a writing coach, an editor. She does all of that. So her and I, somehow we were talking, and somehow the book came up, and we started talking about it. And I sent her what I have, which is on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. It's like 70,000 words already. Because
Wow.
the reason I kind of stopped writing it is because I was at a point where I was like, is this good? Is it not good? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Like, I knew I need someone to help me piece it together. Mm-hmm. So I officially hired her. She's going to be my writing coach / editor, and she's going to take it, and we're going to meet, I don't know, once a month, a couple times a month, or whatever it is. And she's going to start piecing it together to have it make sense, and then coach me on how to do it easier moving forward, or the best way to do it. And I'm hoping that within, I don't know, 6 to 8, 9 months, we can get it completed and then look at getting it published and getting it out to the masses. I don't know. I just think the common wrestling fan, I don't even say common wrestling fan, but headbanger fans, or even just wrestling fans, you see what's in the front side of everything, but you don't really know, I guess, behind the scenes stuff of what the person's feeling or going through. At least that's my opinion. The only other book I've really read, I've kind of scrolled through Mick Foley's book, but the only other book that I've read cover to cover was Pete Gass's book. The only one I read cover to cover. And honestly, the only reason I read it cover to cover because I wanted to see how many times my name was in it. And Pete mentioned me a lot because Pete and I were close when Pete was there. And then, we were in Puerto Rico together and all that other stuff. So, so it's basically going to be from 93 to 02. But I am going to sprinkle in there when we went back in 2016.
Nice.
When we went back in 2016 for those 3 spots.
Well, the cool thing is, like you mentioned, casual fans and headbanger fans, just wrestling fans in general, because one of the dopest thing about you is that you came into the business while there was still the tail end of a territory system.
Yes.
So you guys legit, like you said, you moved to Memphis and traveling around. That's going to be awesome to read about, coming up while there was still a territory system. Do you have any stories you can share with us right now, like a little appetizer, a little preview, a story from the book that you can share with the listeners of the Mosh and Says show?
Yeah, I mean, so part of it's going to be is like a big part of it, especially at the beginning. It was, when Glenn and I first left, like I was single with no responsibility, so it didn't matter. Glenn had a wife and a baby when we packed up and left. So there's going to be little stories in there of Glenn and I literally at times were at each other's throats for certain things on the way things were going. Because, I had this one vision of, okay, we need to go this way. And he was like, yeah, but we need to do this as we're doing that because of certain things that were going on. So there were some battles with him and I, and it's funny, some of the stories looking back, I give one little quick one was we were actually living in Knoxville for Smoky Mountain, and we went to a tanning bed. And I am a type of person that could fall asleep at any time, any place, doing anything, to the point where I had been in the dentist chair getting my teeth cleaned and I've fallen asleep. I don't have, narcolepsy or whatever it is. I don't have that. Once I sit, I'm always just going. But once I sit and I relax, I'm done. I'm just done. I fall asleep. So when I would lay in the tanning bed, to me, it was a good 20 to 30-minute nap. I knew I would fall asleep. But when the tanning bed usually clicks off, it makes a noise. If you ever laid in the tanning bed, it makes a noise and poof and the whole thing. It usually wakes me up. Well, this one time, it didn't wake me up. And Glenn and I were kind of at each other for whatever reason it was. And all of a sudden I hear this pounding on the door. And I jump up, I hit my head on the tanning bed thing. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And Glenn's like, he's like, I don't know, he's calling me something. Like I was taking it at he was like making fun of me. And the reason that bothered me was the girl that worked at the tanning place was a cute girl. And I was like, This is embarrassing that I overslept probably like 20 minutes. It was like a 40-minute nap. So it was a while. And I guess it was like 10 minutes. Glenn was trying to get me up. They wouldn't let him unlock the door. So he's pounding the door and screaming. And I got so mad at him and obviously I can laugh about it now. I was like, fuck you. Like, you're an asshole, blah, 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 blah. Like, why would you do that? Why would you embarrass me? And we got outside and it was like a boyfriend, girlfriend thing in a movie where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to walk back to the house. I'm not driving with you. So I'm walking down the sidewalk and Glenn's in the car next to me and I'm walking and he's driving and he's like, with the window down, just get Chaz, get in the car. Like, you're overreacting, get hard. I'm like, I'm not overreacting. Like, screw you and all this bullshit. It was just so stupid. But it's little stories like that I want to share.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, to me, they're funny. And part of it is wanting my son, who he knows what I did, but he doesn't know the extent of it. He doesn't know all these little innuendos, little stories. I want Ty to know all this little stuff. So the book, I guess, is kind of dedicated to him and then to the wrestling fans to know these little weird little stories. So it's going to be some stuff like that.
No, that's awesome. Especially, growing up myself, a Headbangers fan, now having met you guys, worked with you guys, and very fortunate to have become close friends with you guys. There's not a lot of Headbanger stories out there. You guys never had a big falling out. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought you and Glenn were the perfect tag team as far as altercations, disagreements, but then you see the inside of things. You see you and Glenn in your element. And now I'm here. So
yeah, so it's little stuff like that. Like, we didn't have the perfect relationship. But then again, any relationship, it's like anything else. It takes work. And, it took work for us to do that. And, we were fortunate enough to have the territories. We were fortunate enough that his dad actually had a place in Knoxville. So when we first went to Memphis, we thought, oh, we'll stay with his dad in Knoxville. But his dad was a truck driver and drove trucks, but his dad was never there. His dad's, I don't know if it was girlfriend or wife back in the day. Oh, hold on. We lost him. There he is. He's back. Yeah, so his dad had a place in Knoxville, but I don't know if it was his dad's wife or girlfriend or whoever it was, but his dad was always on the road driving trucks. So we were stuck with the wife and girlfriend who was just annoying fucking turd. I mean, that's the easiest way to describe it. But at the same time, we didn't realize wrestling in Memphis that it was a 6-hour drive from Knoxville. So it was a hike. We'd have to go there and then back to Nashville and up to Louisville. So it turned out not really well for us logistically to live in Knoxville. So we ended up getting an apartment in Memphis, and it was the greatest apartment ever. Imagine this. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, fully furnished. Fully furnished. It's got washer and dryer, 1 bedroom with a bed, pull-out couch. The pull-out couch was great because then we went to Home Depot. We bought like a inch-thick piece of plywood. We put it down when we used it as a bed because if not, you were sinking through the springs. There were bars on the windows.
Whoa.
Bars on the windows. Everyone told us when we told them where we rented an apartment that we were in the hood, we should never live there. Never heard anything. Never had a problem. The place was called Melrose Place.
Oh my God.
And that's when Melrose Place was big on TV. So Glenn and I, being who we are and how we are, we went to the store and bought those little plastic pools because it didn't have a pool. And that was our pools. We'd sit out there, Melrose Place, and sit out in the little plastic pools.
The headbangers at Melrose Place.
Yes. Yes.
Chaz,
So,
was it I know you talked about the contentious nature of it. Was it hard for you transitioning into the tag team aspect, especially because Glenn was your trainer?
No, it was actually simple for me because there really was no transition because I started in June of 93. July of 93, 3 weeks later, I was on WWF TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had what I consider, I had 6 WWF TV enhancement matches, squash matches, before I had what I would consider my first real match, which was in September of 93. September, October, November of 93, I did a little program with this other guy, Craig. He was from Ohio. He was down, trained, started the same time I did, trained all summer. So we worked a 3-month program, and this is actually great. So we did a Broadway. So we did like a 10-minute time limit match, ran out of time. First match. The second match was the same thing. I think we went 20 minutes. And then the third match, this is great. Larry calls us into his office, and we're sitting there. Larry Sharp owned the Mosh Factory, for those of you that don't know. So we're sitting there, and he goes, so listen, he goes, this is the final match for you guys. This is like we did a little storyline. This is the final one. And we're like, okay. He goes, we're doing a loser leaves town match. And we're both like, oh crap, loser leaves town. He grabs 2 stacks of tickets. He plops them in front of us, and he goes, whoever sells the most tickets stays. Whoever doesn't goes home. Loser leaves town. Craig goes, this isn't really fair. Chaz lives here. I'm from Ohio. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. Go sell tickets. So obviously I stayed. But right after that is when Glenn came to me about tagging, because Glenn had been wrestling for 3 years before me. You know, he had done some single stuff by himself. He had been to Puerto Rico, had been to Japan. And his thing was, I've tried it for 3 years on my own. You know, maybe a tag team would be different. You know, maybe we could make it a tag. And Glenn and I got along so well. We just hit it off right off the bat that it just made sense. And it was funny too, because Larry told Glenn, don't do a tag team. First of all, Chaz doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he's still so green. Like, you don't need someone like that holding you back. He goes, plus it's harder to get booked on a show because there's usually only 1 or 2 tag matches on a show. Singles matches, there's more. And Glenn was like, no. He goes, I really have a good feeling about this. I really want to try it. And when Glenn came to me and he was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. Because Glenn at that time down at the school, he was the trainer, but he was the man. Everyone wanted to be around Glenn. You wanted to be around Glenn. You wanted to be with Glenn. Like, he just had this energy about him.
That's awesome.
Sometimes that energy now drives me batty, but he knows that. But Glenn's Glenn. That's who he is. But his energy was so strong, like you just wanted to be around him. So literally, I went from doing 6 TV matches to 3 singles matches right into tagging with Glenn. And I think our first tag match together was it? No, it had to be September, October. It had to be December, and then January we won Larry's tag titles. So I'm less than a year into the tag champ.
So Larry, the guy that said, "Hey, don't be in a tag team," put his tag team titles on you guys.
Yes.
See, that's awesome. I never knew like if Glenn had ever taken the, quintessential "I'm the trainer, you're the green boy" mentality approach in handling your relationship, or if you guys were just partners from the start.
No, we were partners from the start. And the good part about that was, Glenn had connections ahead of time before, we even started tagging, because again, he had been around. So like he had done shows with Lawler, he'd done shows with Cornette. So the door was kind of open for us to get those opportunities to go to, like when we went to Memphis for the first time, he already knew Lawler. Lawler was at a show. Lawler saw us as a tag in the Spiders. He was like, "No, we'd love to have you guys come down." So he already had the inside stuff. And the other side of it is to be totally honest and transparent about it. I don't know if I would have ever got to where I got to without Glenn, without us being a tag, and the same for him, because there's no way I would have packed up a car and moved to Memphis by myself.
Really?
Like D'Lo did that. So many people packed up the car and just went on their own. I couldn't imagine trying to navigate that on myself because I was young. I mean, this time I was 22. Like 22-year-olds now are different than when I was 22. I was naive. I knew nothing. So having Glenn help, especially when, I don't know if I ever told you this story or not, the very first match, where'd you go?
Well, it keeps doing it. Yeah, it's just for a second.
Yeah. But the very first match we had in Memphis was the Mid-South Coliseum.
Wow.
It was Glenn and I. They gave us Burt Prentice as our manager. No one knew who we were. And we're wrestling. It was Doug Gilbert and Reggie B. Fine. Now, the what's the word I'm looking for? The style of wrestling in the Northeast where we came from and the style in Memphis were 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
And to me, I didn't know any different. So the style is so different in the Northeast. The heel runs the entire match. The heel calls everything. They call your hope spots. They call, okay, fight back. Let's go, cut you back off. They do all that. Well, I found out very quickly in Memphis, they don't do that at all. So Glenn being the veteran of the team, he was the one that would come in at the beginning, start the match, kind of shine, tag me in. We do a couple of things, and then boom, they cut me off. They get the heat on me. Glenn comes in for the comeback, blah, 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 and then we go home for the finish. So they're getting the heat on me, and they're literally beating the shit out of me. They're just bumping me all over. They're doing whatever they want. Not once do I fight back because I'm coming from a mentality of where I trained and what I did. The heel told you, the heel would shoot you off, duck it, sunset flip. All right, small package. I'm going to lift you up, small package. Like they called the hope spots. I wasn't fighting back. I wasn't doing anything. So Burt Prentice was on the outside. At the time, I thought he was just being his managerial self and cheering me on. And he was screaming, fight, you got to fight. They're fucking killing you. They're eating you up. Fight. Oh, yeah, come on, I'm fighting. Like, let me get the crowd into it. Had no idea. So we get through the match. We get in the back. Burt pulls me aside, and he's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, where do we start? Like, I don't know. Like, what's wrong with you? How much time do you have to talk about this? Like, and he goes, you got to fight back. And he goes, I was telling you to fight. And I told him, I thought you were just kind of like cheering me on. Like, I didn't realize you were saying like, fight. And he's like, no, he's like, you have to fight. Like, they're going to eat you up here. But then I realized quickly, I was like, oh, wow. So what happened is us being a true tag team and Glenn not playing the veteran green guy role was we were driving. So that was Monday was in Memphis. Tuesday was in Louisville, Kentucky, which was 6 hours away. So what we did that night is because at this point we didn't have the apartment. We didn't have Melrose Place at the time. So we drove to Nashville, which was like the halfway point on the drives, because you would go, Memphis was here, you'd go straight across to Nashville here, and then Louisville was up this way. So we're driving to Nashville, and I was like, Glenn and I were talking about it, and I was flustered. I was flustered, flabbergasted, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, Larry was right. I'm not ready for this. This is going to hurt us more than anything. I said to Glenn, I go, just drive home. Just keep going. We got all the stuff in the car. We don't need to go anywhere. Screw this. Just go home. And Glenn's like, no. He's like, you're going to be fine. We got to learn. He goes, both of us have to learn. He goes, I didn't know either. He goes, we got to learn. We'll learn together. We're going to be fine. Blah, 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 blah. And then from that point forward, I started paying more attention to the other matches, what was going on and how they were doing it. And then Bert kind of took us and helped us like, okay, the style here is this way and it's that way. And then we started getting more help. And obviously it worked out great. But yeah, it was a true partnership. I don't even want to say team. It was a true partnership from the start. And like every other partnership, you argue, you fight, you scream and yell, and then you go, okay, we got to move on. We got to fix it. And then we would somehow move on and fix it. To the point now, we used to, obviously we were on the road so much together, and we stayed together, the apartment together. We stayed in the hotel rooms together. Now it's a prerequisite when we get booked on an indie show. We want separate rooms. We don't need to be in the same room anymore. Yeah.
For the betterment of the team.
Yes, we need to be separated sometimes.
God, it's one of those things where hearing you tell that story, could you imagine if we'd be sitting here right now, if Glenn had done as you asked and had turned the car around and gone home?
No, we probably would. And there's another side of that also. We'd probably just be indie stars in the Northeast. We'd be those guys up north where everyone in the Northeast area knew who we were, but no one else did, because we could get booked wherever we wanted in the Northeast because of Larry and because of Glenn. And then that was when Carluzzo was running up there. So it was already kind of set up from Glenn. But yeah, we would have been huge stars in the Northeast, and we would have been like the Brooklyn Brawler. We would have been huge jobbers on TV. Which brings up another thing. Brooklyn Brawler should go in the WWE Hall of Fame. Just
agreed.
Saying.
Very nice. Agreed.
But yeah, that's one of the things where we would have just been stars up there, and that's probably it. And another part of that's in this story is even when we were in Arkansas wrestling for Bert after we left Smoky Mountain, we were literally making $3-4 a night, $5. It was a big payday if we got $20.
Wow.
At the end of the week, we had no money. There was one of the guys that Bert was using was a cop. And through him, I became friends with him and his sister, and there was connections with the school district. So I had enough credits from college that I could be a substitute teacher. So during the day, and because they knew the guy Brian, and then he knew me, after a couple of times using, they would put me at the top. So they would call me every night or every morning. I was substitute teaching like, I don't know, 3-4 days a week. And I mean, that was like $50 a day. So I mean, that was a huge thing. I would substitute teach, or I had to go get a part-time job. I went to an agency and got a job or whatever. But this is part of the whole thing in the book. I won't give away all of it, but part of it was we weren't making any money, and it was Thanksgiving weekend. We hadn't been home in like 3 months, and again, we haven't been home in 3 months. Glenn had a baby and a wife at home, so we were like, we're not making any money. This is bullshit. We didn't tell Bert. We just packed up the car and we left. We just drove back to Jersey from Arkansas. Didn't tell anybody we were leaving or nothing. We get home. We spend Thanksgiving with the family. Then we showed up down at the Monster Factory that Friday night, and Larry was like, "Whoa, what the hell are you guys doing here?" And we're like, We're not doing it anymore. Fuck Bert. He's not paying us. We're not making any money. Blah, 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 blah. We went on this rant. And Larry just sat there going like this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Smoking a cigar. Going, mm-hmm. And he was like, let me ask you guys a question. What are you going to do now? And we're like, well, we'll wrestle around here. He goes, what are you going to do? Wrestle around here once or twice a month? He goes, maybe you weren't making money out there. He goes, but at least you were working. You were in the ring every day. He goes, you were getting exposure. He goes, because isn't Bert bringing you guys had told me they were bringing people over. And we were like, well, yeah. He goes, so again, why are you here? And we were like, all right, well, this all makes total sense. So 2 days later, so we stayed home, and that next weekend, 2 days later, we packed up the car and we drove all the way back to Arkansas. And Bert never knew we were gone because there were no shows that weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, it's little stuff like that that I think people may, I don't even know, maybe I'm hoping they enjoy it, but maybe appreciate the behind the scenes stuff of the sacrifice that I say we, but that most people make to get to where they want to go, where we got to, because we got to, as a tag team, the pinnacle of where you get to being WWF Tag Team Champions. So it's the dues you have to pay to get there.
No, that's awesome. I, of course, certainly appreciate it, and that's not stuff you hear every day. You guys were starving on the road, and the only benefit you had, like you said, was exposure, was ring time, was honing your craft. But Chaz, you mentioned partnership, and there is another partnership on a different level that you and I were talking about off camera right before we started. And it's a particular father-son partnership that literally gave you goosebumps while we were talking about it. And I want to bring it up on the air here before we sign off on this episode. Tell us about that partnership that gave you chills.
Great. Tremendous segue. Well done. Yeah, so those of you that follow the NBA, LeBron James, obviously you know who LeBron James is. And he had his son, Bronny James. He got the Lakers to draft him, 56th overall or whatever in the draft. And LeBron has said, I want to play long enough to be able to play with my son. So last night was opening night of the NBA. And I'm getting goosebumps telling the story. Opening night of the NBA, and I guess I didn't see it. I'm just going off what I saw on SportsCenter. They took LeBron out. There's about 4 minutes left in the second quarter. And there's a break. Here comes LeBron and his son onto the court for the first time together. It's not like LeBron was on and then they subbed his son in. They were both sitting. And the cool part is you can see LeBron talking to his son as a father and then as a coach at the same time, because he's telling his son, do you feel the energy? Do you feel it? Like, soak it up, eat it up, enjoy it, like use it when you get out there, like feel it, use it. He goes, this is what I thrive off of. Like, he's going over all of these things with his son, and you could see his son just sitting there. Like, it was almost, to me, I'm picturing myself talking to my son, and I could see his son going, yeah, Dad, I get it. Yeah, Dad, I get it. But totally not getting it and going in the back of his mind going, okay, Dad, shut up. Like, look, I'm trying to get ready to get in the game or whatever he was doing. But they were both sitting on the bench. So when they came out, it was really cool because unfortunately, his son didn't score. He only played like 3 or 4 minutes. But he got a couple passes, did a couple things. Like, he took a couple shots, like a couple things with LeBron. But what that meant to me was it was kind of cool and special because, as you know, Simon, I play kickball, and a couple years ago, and I know it's not on it's not at the same level, but to me it is.
It is.
I got to play kickball season with my son, which was unbelievable because Tyler's played soccer. He's a big kid. He's super strong. He's super athletic, and it was funny. I'm playing against, people that I know, friends of mine, and we were warming up. And I said to the one guy, I go, just go a little bit easy on the pitching, because people think of kickball like in school where you can't bounce it, you can't spin, you just got to slow roll in. No, these guys I play with are throwing the ball 50, 60 miles an hour. It's bouncing, it's spinning, it's going all over. And like I didn't want Tyler to go for one kick and like miss and fall down because I've seen people swing and miss and fall down. So I was like, just go a little bit easy on him. He gave him kind of like what I would call batting pitch, a BP ball. And Tyler boomed the hell out of this ball. And they all looked at me and they go, there's no going easy on him. Like, we're not doing that in the game. But we played the entire season together, which was just amazing to have him there in a sport that I love. And he liked it. He enjoyed it, but he played because I asked him to. But the really cool moment was we were actually in the championship game. And I was on second base, and there's a guy on second. I was on third. We had 2 outs. We were losing by 1 run in the last inning. Tyler was up. I called him down the line. I said, you got to kick a line drive. He goes, okay. And he turned and he starts walking away. And then he turns back and he goes, where do you want it? I go, where no one's standing? I'm like, I don't know. You just got to kick a line drive where no one, it's got to land. I said, because I will score. I said, Hunter will score from second easily. Just get it out there. He goes, Dad, pick a spot. And I go, a line drive, dead center field. I go, is that what you're asking for? He's like, yes, that's all I want you to tell me. I'm like, okay. So here's my kid standing there, just boom, like it's no big first pitch, no big deal. Perfect line drive up the middle. It lands. I score. The other guy scores. It's a walk-off. And Tyler's standing at first base going, what's going on? We're like, oh, you won the game. So to get that moment with him, and then I didn't realize at the time, but my other teammates had made a trophy and they gave him like Rookie of the Year trophy. And so they all like the way the team just like embraced him because all the people I play with basically watched him grow up.
Yeah.
So to see LeBron get that time with Bronny on the court, to me, was just amazing being a father and having that same opportunity that he's now able to have that I had with my son. I just thought it was tremendous. I thought it was great. And people that complain about it and are tired of hearing about it, shut up.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
Well, Chaz, that is definitely a very special time for sure. We're going to talk about another very special time next week on our episode as we explore your very first WrestleMania. Your very first WrestleMania. If I'm not mistaken, that was also your first appearance on an actual pay-per-view card, not the pre-show, not the free-for-all, not the dark matches, but WrestleMania 13 was you guys' pay-per-view debut. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about the weeks leading up to it, your mentality, the storylines that were happening at the time, and where that propelled you and Uncle Glenn into Headbangers Superstardom. But that'll be next week. For now, Chaz, awesome. You got anything going on?
Yeah, let me just bring up real quick. Again, JA South Florida, you get your Team Mosh shirt right here. Go ahead and go to this link. You vote for me. It's $35 to vote. You get the T-shirt also for $35. So the T-shirt, and it's, again, limited edition T-shirt. You only can get it through going to the link right there and voting. Vote for me. And then every time you vote for me, your name goes into the hat. And I'm going to be raffling off a set of the brand new action figures signed. That's all I got. What about you?
Guys. Get those signed figures, get those votes in, and you cannot buy that Team Mosh shirt anywhere else. It's not up for purchase. You can't get it from a store. You can only get it by hitting the link and voting for Chaz.
That's it. It's the only way you're getting it.
And gang, I'll be wrestling this weekend in Deltona, Florida for Pro Wrestling Action. Check it out. Eventbrite Monster Mash 2. Come check it out. I'm psyched about next week, Chaz, because we talk about your first pay-per-view, your first WrestleMania. You still got a lot of clear memories of that time?
Oh, yeah. I think I've only been concussed once or twice, so I'm good.
Now, I know there's certain stories that we can't tell on the air, but we're going to tell as many as we can here and save a few for the book. Stay tuned. It's in the works now. Chaz's book, his story, and his time through wrestling, his career. I am Simon Says. Yeah?
One last thing, because it just popped into my head. I don't have a name for the book yet. So if anyone out there, you can come up with a great name for it. Maybe we have a contest for that. So think about names for the book.
Dude, that is awesome.
All right. Until
That
next
is
week. We good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. See you next week.
See you guys.